But first, there has been no greater test of the food industry's resilience than the COVID-19 global pandemic. FIA has been assessing COVID's impact on food and beverage supply chains, manufacturing, distribution, trade, and consumer activity. FIA commissioned a PwC report into maintaining food resilience in a time of uncertainty. And we asked FIA Executive Director Matt Kovac about the report's findings.
The key findings from this report demonstrated that it was important for governments to support the food industry by enabling supply chains to stay open. And we called them sort of like green highways. So when food products were coming into ports or whether being transported around different countries, that borders remained open and they were able to receive that and distribute the food obviously to different parts of those countries. We also showed through the report how essential it is to protect workers in factories and other environments in the food sector and put that as a priority of maintaining high levels of public safety for those employees. And then one of the other key findings was also how much financial support was needed to support the food industry, because it's considered an essential industry because we all need food. The surprises were that actually many of the governments in the region hadn't actually considered food and agricultural workers as essential critical infrastructure. And so it was just closed down at the beginning. And obviously that was a bit of a surprise, because when you don't have food or it's more difficult to access food, you realise how essential it is. And so governments were quite quickly to take on board our advice and then consider those employees within the whole food and agricultural sector as being essential. What we see right now is that supermarket shelves are now stocked with food, that supply chains are open now, and that the governments have been willing to negotiate with much of industry to ensure that a range of different food products are continuing to be supplied to consumers. So that's a good sign. Now, there are still some small challenges in the areas of agriculture. So where we've seen the inability of some migrant workers to get into fields to pick certain fruits and vegetables and things like that. However, that's being worked through significantly more than what it has in the past, and we're still seeing plentiful supply in retail outlets. The way that FIA acts on behalf of its members is to help support them by negotiating with governments and identifying what some of the critical issues are on behalf of the entire industry. So sometimes what we see is that when one company tries to negotiate with the government says, well, what's the implication for others as well? Are we doing this just for the benefit of you as a company? And that's the role that FIA plays. We can represent a broad industry members and negotiate on behalf of the entire industry to make sure it's fair and equitable for all.